This is how you never lose marks ever again when asked questions about the variance analysis from budgeting. So variance analysis is when we compare the actual financial performance versus our budgeted financial performance, which is calculated by taking the actual value minus the budgeted value. Now, our variances can either be split into two categories, favourable or adverse. Let's start off with favourable. Favourable is when we have better than expected values. So when we look at revenue, this is when our actual financial performance is greater than our budgeted financial performance. So we have made more revenue than we once expected, which would mean the variance would be a positive number. And when we look at costs, this is when our actual value is smaller than our budgeted value. So we have spent less money than we originally budgeted for, which would mean the variance would be a negative number. But when we look at adverse, this is where it completely swaps. Because when we look at our adverse values, these are worse than expected results. So when starting off with revenue, this is when our actual revenue is smaller than our budgeted revenue. So we have made less revenue than we budgeted for, which would mean the variance would be a negative number. And when we look at the costs, this is when our actual value is greater than our budgeted value. So we have spent more money on costs than we originally budgeted for. So our variance would be a positive value. However, even though our analysis might show that we have an adverse value for costs, this isn't necessarily always a bad thing, and we can include this within our evaluation. For example, we may have spent more money on costs, such as raw materials, because the level of demand actually rose more than we once expected. Make sure that you're following for more A-level business revision.